December 25th. Can we shut the light? Thank you. Right here you can see the planets. There's Venus and the Sun and a couple of little together. Here's Jupiter over here. And that's December 25th. Now if we go day by day until we get to leaving it at the same time, why don't you put that up to...
Design?
No, go to the location, Paul.
Oh, yeah, right.
Go to location, and we'll go to Halifax. Go down more. Can you see that?
Location.
More. And then go down to Halifax. So what we're doing now is we're taking a point on the Earth right where we are, which is a longitude and latitude. And Charlottetown is 63 degrees west, 07, and the latitude is 46 north, 14. And that's a point right at this particular spot, Charlottetown. And the energies are coming down to this point at the moment. So what we did, we set it for that, and this is what we see right now. The time now is, well, this is at December 26th, but that's good. Leave it at 12 p.m. because we can see the line of planets here. So now we're going to progress from December 26th up to and towards January 11th, and we'll watch all the planets start to congregate together when they come together as a group. And what I'm trying to bring out here is, oh, sure, put it on. No. Just go day by day, because we'll lose the planets. Go day by day till we get to.
Let me go back.
All right. That's good.
Yeah,
Now you can see the planets. I don't think you see that, but the planets are all coming together here. And this is what is actually going on if you were actually able to see it all. The only ones we can see is the Sun. We can see the Moon. We can see Mercury, Venus, and Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. The other three planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, are too far away to see with the naked eye. But in the night sky, we are able to see the 7 major planets. And what happened here on, that's January the 14th, you see a conjunction of all the planets coming together, which for myself brings a force on the Earth, all on one side of the Earth, that puts a pull somewhere. Something's got to give. And the only one that I really talked to about it was Kathy, and I felt there was going to be an earthquake somewhere around that time. And when it passed January 11th, I wasn't sure it was going to happen. And the only thing that really happened at that point of time was there was a big fire in Australia, and it was a dam that overflooded the whole town and got wiped out. A lot of people do not think that the configuration of the planets have an effect on the Earth, but the only planets that we really see is the Sun and the Moon. And the Sun, we know when it goes in the summertime we get heat, and in the wintertime we get cold. And the Moon, we can watch the tides. As a sailor, excuse me for talking fast, but I have a lot to cover in 15 minutes. And before I keep going, the knowledge that I have is 20 years background. I learned from a person who is now 83 years old. He was born in Hungary. He learned to be a doctor. He knows 7 languages. He translated books because the books weren't available in his time. And he gave up doctoring to become an astrologer consultant. And I spent time in New York learning this from my work in his house. I used to get lectures in the nighttime when I came home. So going back to being a sailor, I know that the tides are always changing, and we can see that by the moon. And we have a tide table that is printed, and in that tide table it gives us all the configurations of the high and low tides for the year. And the Sun too, we can see when it's going to be the summertime, when the fall, the spring, and the winter. The other planets are taken for granted. But there is a tremendous effect that happens with all the other planets. Each planet has a configuration of its own and an effect of its own. So what I'm bringing out here is at that particular point in time, January 14th, actually on January the 11th, when the configuration happened, the planets came together. Now I'm going to ask Paul to go beyond January 14th, and you'll start to see the moon pass, and it should come up to Saturn. Here's the moon that has passed Saturn. Keep going, Paul.
Can I go backwards?
No, go forward. Okay. We'll keep going. And then you'll start to see, keep going, you watch the planets separate now. So the planets, even though the Earth's spinning on its axis, the planets are also moving in time and space, just as the Earth is, and we get a different configuration. So the point I'm trying to bring out here is that we can see way before time when this configuration can happen if we're able to read the stars and understand the symbolic representation of the planets and the signs at a particular point in space of longitude and latitude. We should be able to figure out if there's going to be a disaster somewhere, an earthquake or rain or snow or so on. And this takes years and years of experience, observation of all the phenomena that there is. Anyway, I'd like to stop here, and I'll ask Paul if you can do this while I set up the overhead, and we'll continue on to this topic. Just one, yeah, I just need one. Is that okay for everybody? I've got about 15 to 20 books here out of my library. My library consists of maybe about 1,500 books. They're all on the occult, magic, astrology, medicine, herbs, and just about everything under the sun that deals with the occult. The occult to me just means hidden, which is a knowledge that we can search libraries for. I spent 5 years on the road living in a van. I've gone to different libraries all over. Became interested in this because I wanted to know basically where I came from, where I am, and where I'm going. And I'm on this ball. We're all on this ball. The ball is turning in time and space. And for me, this ball is a spaceship in time. And it's really important to understand this motion of the ball and where it's going through so we can survive. But also surviving means taking care of the planet itself too. And ourselves, we're a small microcosm of the great macrocosm. The macrocosm is the great world, which is all the planets, universes, and I say universes because there are other universes even though we can't contemplate. So I'm going to put up a bunch of different overheads, things to go through this quick. This is just different motions of the sun. And these are the longitudes of, it's just points that the Earth has been designated to from Greenwich, where it's 0 degrees Greenwich, and the time zone, we're in the 4-hour time zone. On here, if you go, and that's the Atlantic Standard Time, then we can go to Eastern Standard Time, which is the 5-hour zone. And the reason I'm putting all this up is because to do an astrological chart, we need all this information. We have to, a person is born at a particular longitude and latitude in time. And if a sailor was out on a boat, then we don't know where we are. We have to find where we are. So we take a sextant and we get an angle. We take a sighting on, say, the sun. And in the books, and then we take a time. And say it's 12 noon. And we know at 12 noon we got an angle. These are for all you mathematicians who created this. From the angle and the time, we can get our longitude and latitude on the ball. Well, astrology is just the inverse. We have the longitude and latitude where we are born. And if we're lucky, our parents have kept the time or the hospitals have kept the time. So we have our longitude and latitude and our time and the date. Then we want to know what's above in the sky. And from these calculations, we can find out what stars are above. The other way, sailing, you know what's above, you want to find out where you are. This is a circle of 360 degrees. It's allotted into 30 degrees per section. There's 12 sections. And actually, there's 12 signs in the zodiac. The 12 are allotted to, there was the 12 tribes of Israel, Hercules, and the 12 laborers. King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table were 12. 12 is a significant number. There was Jesus and the 12 apostles. But they all relate to 12 signs of the zodiac and the astrological world. I'm not giving a lecture on religion. I don't believe in religions. Always there are wars. So this is a science to me that gives us our freedom to have free will and to think for ourselves without a conflict to anybody else. But basically, all the religions stem from the same place. And as I go through this, we'll see that each race and each creed of people that have been on the planet, no matter what language they spoke, they still look to this particular sky that is created by that God, that power, energy, whatever we conceive it to be. And they brought back the information so they can keep going on the planet and survive. And they put it in their own tongue and their own hieroglyphics. This is actually on the Earth, and we're moving around. It takes, sorry, I got that upside down. Backwards. It takes so long for our Earth, it's 25,800 years to go around another circle in the sky, which I'm not going to get into. My information has come from books like The Time Changes in Canada, which I have all the books here. When I first started doing astrology, everything had to come from the books. This is the U.S. on the time zones. Now I'll get into this is of Egypt and also of Stonehenge and how they used particular circles and designated monuments to actually understand the phenomenon of the sun and motion in time. The pyramids were built supposedly on the navel of the earth. And when they built the pyramids, they built it on a principle of squaring the circle. And the four sockets of the pyramid are actually the four cornerstones for the four cardinal points of the earth. And when they built the pyramid, they put a hole on the side, which is a tunnel. And that tunnel from the king's chamber in the center, when you look, if you ever look down a railroad track, you'll notice that the railroad track gets smaller and smaller. Well, it's the same thing in the pyramid. And what they did, they aligned the pyramid and they aligned this tunnel to the pole star. So no matter what age or what lifetime they were in, they were able to know where the earth was by looking through the tunnel, and the tunnel would always be pointing to the pole star because our pole star changes in time as that other big circle I was showing you. So these people, ancient people, kept records of time and where this ball was in time and space. If I'm going too fast, please stop me. If I'm not clear, somebody make a comment, and I'm trying to condense this real quick. This is taken from a book, which isn't too clear here. And it shows the astrological signs, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, all around. And it shows the pyramid, it shows the planets, and there's a whole bunch of data in here. Now I'm going to go back to a lost civilization. And some may dispute it. I don't. The lost continent of Mu. Mu was supposedly a continent that was in the South Pacific, which is now the remnants of Hawaii. The Hawaiians had ancient magicians called kahunas who were very versed in the knowledge. But from when this continent went under, from earthquakes and cataclysms below, then people migrated to this continent and also went to China and into India. And India has a vast knowledge of remnants. These stone tablets are actually from stone tablets that are in China. And China has caves where this knowledge is still preserved of ancient information, and also in India, East Indian people have a vast science of the astrological world. But the point I want to bring out here is the cross. The cross was used because, again, it's the four cardinal points of the earth. This is a swastika, but the swastika is actually the same cross, but this here, hook here, actually means a force in the body, which is the Kundalini force, which starts at the spine. It's a swirling motion, and I'll get into that as we go along. Well, I'm trying to condense this quick. Here's another group of people that live down the earth. And they also used certain symbols. And they had wings on which went off into Egypt. Aryan, the Persians, and so on, down to the Egyptians, Guatemala. They all have a certain thing here with symbols that they use to represent a particular thing. We as students here in Holland College learning about resistors, transistors, and diodes and you name it, and they all have symbols, and we have to go through enormous books. So it's no different to put minds into a certain state. So each planet was given a metal, an herb, a tone, a color. There are therapeutics done with color, there are therapeutics done with tone. This is the ancient symbol of Pluto. This is the symbol that's being used now. This is the symbol of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Again, we have the spirit, the soul, and the cross in between. Here we have, again, the soul, and the cross on the bottom. Here again we have the soul and the spirit, and the cross underneath the eternal world. Excuse me? They didn't have a symbol of Pluto anciently. They used the 7 planets. The 7 planets. If you go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 7 notes on the scale, then when you go to A, it's the next octave up. So we'll take Uranus to be the higher octave of Mercury. Well, Mercury is the mind, Uranus is the higher mind. If I go into the anatomy of the body, where I went into the sun as the big brain, the moon, little brain, I go into Mercury, which is the thyroid glands or speech. That's why Mercury was given in communication. Venus is the gland of the thymus gland in the center, in our neck here. Saturn is the gallbladder. Too much gall, you get killed. And Jupiter is the liver, and Mars is the sexual parts of the body, and so on. So each planet, there are 7 ductus glands in the body that secrete internally inside ourselves. They play an important role. So the ancients knew about these planets, but they didn't give them symbols. They used the 7 planets to diagnose what they had to. That's like we can go further into the universe with our telescopes, and we're no further ahead. We can take our microscopes and go deep into splitting the atom, we're no further ahead. But we're on this ball, and there are these motions in time that we can't see, and if we know there's a macrocosm and microcosm, then to here is to there is to here is to below. And there's an ancient saying that as above, so below. So there's a tremendous correlation there. And I didn't give Jupiter, so I'm going to put Jupiter up. And Jupiter is the soul above the cross, the most benefic planet. I've got one chart here which I'm going to put up so we do a diagnostic on it. Before that, I want to tell how all this came to be. Oh, awfully sorry. I don't know if we can. That's Chang. Paul McFadden, he's not here. Tony? And Rick?
Yep. Thanks, Robert.
And Jason? They're here. And Randy? Todd? Robert? Bob? O'Connor. Who's that? He's not here? Gordon? Nora? Albert? Jody? Brian, I didn't have his. Pauline? Last but not least. Where am I? Okay.
You know where the
Do I know why? No.
Excuse me, Robert.
Yes.
Is there any way of interpreting, this chart looks very, there's obviously not a lot of work put into it, but I have no idea what any of these, how to interpret these symbols.
I'm going to get to that, Rick.
Okay.
Probably won't be able to after I do this whole thing, but what I'm trying to do is just bring light to this ancient science that is a tremendous tool for the benefit of everybody. Got that. Just to bring some light onto the subject that is lost. Each one of you have one of these. This is the key to astrology, just like the symbols. And I'm going to go through it quickly, just so you can see what it does, and you can digest it on your own at some point in time if you want. Aries, Taurus, Gemini, all the way down, 12 parts of the body. Mars, Venus, Mercury, the Moon, the Sun, Mercury again, and so on. Each sign is allotted a planet. It has its home, domicile there. Mars has its home in Aries. Venus has its home in Taurus. The opposite sign of Aries is Libra. Here in Libra we find Venus. Venus has its home there. Mars is in detriment there. It does not like to be. Venus is in detriment in the house of Mars, which means the planet of love does not like the planet of war. Basically, the same thing here. Mars has its home in Aries. Venus is in detriment in the house of Mars. The planet of love does not like to be in the house of war. So this is a thing where the planets have their home, their detriment, where they're exalted. The sun is exalted in Aries in March, because that's when they found that the sun becomes the most powerful as it starts to climb up from the dead of winter. The moon has its exaltation in Taurus, because that's right after the sun goes into Aries and the moon goes into Taurus, and Easter is actually, the celebration is Easter is actually when the sun rises in the east. That's where Easter comes from. And it goes way back. Same thing with fall. The sun has fallen from its exaltation to the opposite sign of Libra. It's in its fall, which means that it has fallen from an exaltation point to where it becomes weak. It starts to go below the sky. So that is what this is. The triplicity is where the sun has its triplicity in a fire sign. Again, has its home there, and again in a fire sign. And the last one is perigee, which has no connotation where it's either this way or that way. When a planet is in, say the sun is in a fire sign, it's strong. Any fire sign, because it's in triplicity of itself, or the triangle. Same thing with any planet. So if Venus has its home in air and in earth, when Venus is in an air or earth sign, it's more powerful than being in a different sign. This is the other chart you have, and I briefly touched on this as we went around with the 6-pointed star. And the key points here: Aries is fire, Taurus is earth, air, and water. Fire, earth, air, water, fire, earth, air, and water. Again, cardinal point. Cardinal point of the earth. And also, it's a masculine sign, as we spoke of before. Next is a feminine, masculine, feminine. So these things we have to put into our mind if you want to interpret a chart and look at it as a schematic or a blueprint. Naturally, the other chart previous to this tells you that here, Mars has its home in Aries, domicile. Sun has its home in Leo, domicile. It has its fall in the opposite sign. The Sun is exalted in Aries and has its fall over there. And that's the other chart you have. And originally, now I do my charts with a computer. Originally, I had to go to, I had to do all the math to begin with. Which I'm not being able to pull it up here. But there's a whole process of math, and then you go to a book, and I brought all the books in with me. And then a longitude and latitude, which is 46 degrees. It's stated right here, and I look over, and after my math, they give me a number, and I look down, and I find out where all the planets were. Now I just punch in the whole thing on a computer, and up it comes. I still like to do it manually, because to do it, you have to take 2 days The books are written in Greenwich. And in this book, my books go from 1850 all the way up to 1999, and I can pick any point in time and do a chart for any point in time of any person. And it's all given here by computer calculated. And when you do, you have to take 2 days. If you're born, say today, say at 12 noon, then I have to take today where the planets were at Greenwich, and then go to 12 noon tomorrow where the planets were in Greenwich, 2 days in the book, and find the mean motion of the sun for 24 hours. Then I want to know how much the sun has moved from 12 noon to the birth time to bring it down to a precise moment in time, so that we know exactly where the sun was, which side it was, which degree. And I'll get to that when I do a chart. Yeah. I have Leno's chart here, I'm not sure I'm going to put it up. I will for a particular point. Okay, I want to put January 24th, January 11, 1994. Just to show that we saw on the screen how the planets came together. If I do the chart, I did this chart for 12:05 p.m., 63 degrees west, 07, 46 degrees north, 14, which is Charlottetown. And this is what we would have seen. And here we can see Mars in Capricorn, the Moon in Capricorn, Venus in Capricorn, Neptune in Capricorn, the Sun in Capricorn, Uranus in Capricorn, Mercury in Capricorn. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 planets in Capricorn. Saturn here is in Aquarius, close to the height of the sky, and the other 2 are down here.
Are the numbers beside the planetary symbols?
Right here? Okay. If I look at for this art is vast. There's another Egyptian curved wing, and again the circle. The circle was important because the circle has no beginning and end, and the symbol for the sun is a circle with a dot in it, which means a manifestation. So the sun is the most powerful planet we have, representing ourselves. This is also from the same person that wrote the book. Again, if we look here, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 designations. Also the Star of David, or King Solomon's seal, which is a 6-pointed star with a circle in the middle, which I'll get into in a little while. Now I want to go into the womb. We noticed here, again, the egg of time. It's the womb, and the child is in it in a certain form. And if I go back to this one here, notice that the ancients put it the opposite way. So one way we were in the moon, and then we manifested the earth, it's this other way around. And it's actually upside down. And the head is allotted to Aries astrologically, around to Taurus, the throat, Gemini, the lungs, Cancer and Leo and Virgo are all in the intestinal part of the area of the heart. We get to Libra, the same thing. Down to Scorpio is the sexual parts. Sagittarius is the legs. Capricorn, knees. Aquarius, the ankles, and Pisces, the feet. So they allotted parts of the body to every sign of the zodiac. The zodiac comes from Zodiacus. And by the way, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Today is Mr. Thesis' birthday. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So Zodiacus means the circle of animals, zodiac. And astrology is actually the logic of the astral world. And I'll go to another without all the language here, the why it looks into space, it doesn't go to small or 2 letters to great, big. Anyway, if we take here X-ray diffraction pattern of Bernal, we'll notice again there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points there. And if we look into just about everything that we have, if you took a carrot and cut it diagonally across, you'll find circles in it. If you took a log or tree and cut it across, you'll find the circles too. So there's a tremendous correlation between everything that is on the planet and also symbolic world that the ancients okay. Now, this is another called science, which I'm not going to talk about. This is a macrocosmic snowflake. This is called the Kabbalah. And Kabbalah is another process which is also considered with the tarot cards, which I'll talk briefly upon. But this here whole diagram is, there's one main diagram, let's see what's up there, but we'll go here, and it's got all points in it with lines going through it. And those are avenues that we move through in time and space in our life, which they have used, but they put in a symbolic representation here. These are mandalas that I took from all different books, from different religions, to show that everybody used East Indian, North American Indians, everybody has their own symbols that they use, but it still remains the same if we can bring it down to a basic interpretation. Here we find the dragon biting its tail. Again, the circle, never ending. Here we find a square in the middle. Again, here we have 6 points. And the 6 points is not basically a Hebrew symbol, because it was the Hebrew star. But if you took a pyramid and you took the 2 sides and dropped it down, then you have a 6-pointed star. If you took the other 2 sides of the pyramid and dropped it down, you have another 6-pointed star. Astrologically, there are 2 6-pointed stars. One is the masculine, one is the feminine. And here's another mandala. And this I'm going to go a little bit about the Kundalini fire that I was talking about with the swastika, which people take symbols and usurp it for their own power. But here again we have the 12 signs, and also we have the I Ching in here, which is another Chinese symbol. And here we have the yin and yang in the center, but also we have the swastika, and also we have the 6-pointed star. Here we have our spine coming up the center, and here are the 2 nerve centers that come around our spine. If we look at some of the medicinal things, it used to be there'd be a staff with 2 snakes going around it, which represent our spinal cord and an energy that moves there. Now we'll go to East Indian. And East Indian, I mean like India itself, they also had the same kind of connotation. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, with their symbols and their different kind of people and so on. So everybody on the planet have used basically these symbols in their own style, because when the cataclysms happened 36,000 years ago in Mu, and they all migrated, they kept them the knowledge. Then 10,000 years ago when Atlantis went under, the same thing happened, and they migrated and they kept the knowledge. And today too. Today we're very lucky. We have a communication system here, which I'll talk about, that has allowed me to go to California to the seismic centers and bring back information about the earthquake through internet. Also, I've tapped into other astrological groups where also I've gotten information from. And in my life, I've had to travel in a van, going to libraries and bringing back information, meeting people on the street. Today we have such a vast knowledge and access, and basically it's really taken for granted, but it's there for our resources. The human body has 7 centers in it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And these are called chakras in East Indian. Again, we'll come with a cross and so on. It breaks up into the eye, which is the 3rd eye, which is the psychic center in the body. We'll go to a lotus position of meditation. Again, the same thing. Here we have a triangle on the body. Again, the same centers again. And so when people do hatha yoga, they go into this kind of a form to tap into the higher spiritual zones in the body where they can realize spiritualness. Here's 10 dots, which comes from the Pythagorean theorem, or the number 10. We actually go to number 9. When we go to 10, we go back to 1 again. And inside this particular, I'm going to superimpose another one on top of it to show you that there's triangles. But also, it's going to be broken down into the centerpiece. And in religions, they have the Trinity and the 3 persons, and In East Indian, they got the Sattva, Raja, and Tamas, which represents the same thing. And now I'm going to go to the zodiac. Superimpose that like that. So I'm basically getting to, between all this spiritualism, I'm going to go right into astrology now, and why astrology is a vast science, and why it is not what you read in the newspaper for your astrological charts. I just superimpose that onto this chart. I've made this chart as my own design, and it starts from a circle, a point in the center of a compass, so everything is interlinking, and it's a mandala in a sense, and magic is a mandala. Magic comes from the word imagination. The three wise men, or magi, were also magicians. They were versed in the science, and they were astrologers. So to go into this world, you have to use the magic world or the imagination, which lets you imagine what there is. And again, there's 12 pieces around, and here's a triangle, which is the most harmonious design or aspect. And that. And we'll bring up this one. There's 12 pieces in the pie around. There's 12 houses. And the first sign of the zodiac is Aries, the fifth, and then the ninth. These are fire signs. Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius are fire signs. Naturally, it's a triangle, so the three fire signs are connected because that's harmony. There's harmony in fire. Fire needs air, so I'll superimpose air on top of it. Now what I'm trying to do is give a science or information here that take what you need and you can leave the rest. Well, this is how astrology was designated by observation, and by watching the movement of planets and stars, and being on the earth and allotting it to certain things that happen. Now I've just superimposed air, Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. And again, I get the six-pointed star. But astrologically and symbolically, Aries is a masculine sign. The next sign, which is Taurus, is feminine. The next sign is masculine, feminine, masculine. So I have a masculine, 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 masculine sign. I'll pull those two off. We come down to the second house, and we'll keep going. This is Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, earth signs, and they are also in a triangle, and earth needs water. Superimpose water on top of that. And then you have Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. So then you have a feminine, 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 six signs, and another six-pointed star. And you end up with an astrological chart. That takes us to the signs of the zodiac. Aries is the head, Taurus the throat, Gemini the lungs, and so on until we get to Pisces the feet. Those are our outer garments or our body. And I'll go to the sun. Go to the planets. The sun, the circle, manifestation of point in time. Most powerful planet. The sun rules our heart and our big brain and our bloodstream. And I'll talk a little bit about alchemy. The alchemists were astrologers, magicians, chemists, everything all in one. Naturally, it broke into chemistry and astronomy. But the ancients had to know astronomy, chemistry, and everything to understand the phenomena of the body, microcosm and macrocosm. So the symbols became very important. And the point I was going to bring out at this point with the sun is allotted to gold, metal. We have the moon. The moon is allotted to silver, and to the lungs and the small brain. Where the sun is allotted to the big brain of the conscious world and rules the day, the moon is allotted to the small brain or the subconscious world and rules the night. Mars also has a circle, and originally it had a cross here, which people would see as the masculine sign. But the cross here was given to the spiritual world, and here the cross meant the material world. And Mars, having the cross above the circle, means that the martial aspects are more materialism than the spiritual. Mars is the planet of war and destruction, symbolically in the chart. Even though it has a lot of good qualities, it's the planet of war and destruction, and it's a malefic planet. And what I'm talking about now is the allotment of each planet and how to synthesize a chart when you're reading it and understanding what each symbol means so you can come to a final interpretation of this blueprint. My background goes from being a carpenter, I'm a union carpenter, and I read blueprints there. I've got a welding ticket, I've read blueprints there, and now I'm reading blueprints in electronic world. But a blueprint is a blueprint, and the symbols are symbols, and when you learn how to read the symbols, you become versed in the knowledge, and that takes a long time, many, many years. And even though I'm doing this over 20 years, I'm still scratching the surface for it. Here's Venus, one of the most benefic planets. But here we have the circle, the spiritual world, above the cross. So naturally, Venus is the planet of love and not war. And one of the most important planets I consider is Mercury. Mercury was the messenger of the gods. He had wings on his feet. He was the planet of communication, travel, speech. He was a magician in himself. His real name was Hermes Trismegistus. He wrote many, many books. Here we find the moon, which represents the soul over the spirit over the course of the world, or the material. And then we come to Saturn. Saturn is the most malefic planet. Saturn is a planet of restriction, stopping. Saturn has the cross over the moon or the subconscious. Saturn, alchemically, is a lot of lead. Lead is poison, heavy, stopping. Venus is the beautiful copper metal, which is a very malleable metal and is excellent for transmuting and communication. Jupiter is the planet of tin, another good, excellent metal. But Mars is the planet of iron, or things that are very heavy and destructive. So if we took Jupiter and Venus and mixed them together, which actually take copper and tin and mix them together, get the most beautiful sounding bells, brass bells, that have a tremendous tone, which they use in spiritualism. In the sky, and that band cuts across our ball, and it goes below the equator and back up again, and it cuts across certain places on the Earth, places that they cross basically Japan, California, and Europe. We don't feel it here. The planets aren't over our head. So the places where the earthquakes happen the most are going to be in Japan, Europe, and in California, because that's where it's coming. Which eventually, as I learn computer, I'm going to do a program and put all my information in. I've got earthquakes back from 1890 to 1978 from California, from Colorado, from the earthquake center there, and with the longitudes and latitudes of where every earthquake took place up to 7.7 on the Richter scale. And I want to correlate that astrologically to find out what all the correlations are and why they took place. And I don't know if I'll be able to do that in my lifetime or not. Computers are getting great. All you need is the time. And this is today. I did it at 10:30 a.m. and put all the planets up, and this was the time to do a speech. And I tried to look to see where the planets were in relationship to myself and what was going to happen. If they weren't good, I probably wouldn't be here. I'd be homesick, just for an excuse. I'm going to put up another one. Basically, I did look at that. I looked at a lot of things. I bought a house in town. I did an astrological chart for that before I bought this house. I didn't have a lot of money to put a mortgage on it. And I did a chart. I asked a bunch of questions. There's also the I Ching, which you can throw coins, Chinese coins. They'll give you an interpretation. You can throw tarot cards also. They all have, depending how in tune you are to the systems, you can use them all for information. Basically, that's called magic. To me, magic is, it's good. Used for good, it's good. It's used for bad, it's bad. So I went to buy the house and I told them I looked on the papers until 11:55. Naturally, we went across the street into used to be a place here and we watched television, the lawyer and myself. and we went across the street to sign the papers. Because I did the chart at the time I wanted to sign the papers where I set a birth date for that particular thing, which if I have the time, which I don't think so, I'll get into a little bit of that. So anyway, that's that. And now I'm going to chart. I'm going to put a chart. I'll do Jules Verne. I didn't do this whole chart. I just did aspects on it.
Jules Verne? The guy who writes the books?
Yeah. You know him? February 1828. About 12 noon. You know Jules Verne. Excellent chart. If we notice here, I put in lines. Venus, the planet of love, the subconscious, and Saturn are enshrined to one another. Sextiles. Uranus, the higher, and Neptune, the higher or spiritual world, also with Venus. The moon, highly exalted. In the sign of Aquarius. Planet that rules Aquarius is Uranus and Saturn. Again, imagination. Venus, in the sign of Pisces. Again, Pisces is a water sign. It's ruled by Neptune, the planet of... Neptune is the planet of drugs, which is either anesthesia or drugs or any kind of drugs, alcohol. We use that to interpret charts to understand the workings of the body. Anyway, he had a tremendous potential for psychicism. That's why he had a tremendous imagination and he wrote things that have happened in time. But probably a good chart I want to put up here is Elvis Presley. Not because I'm affiliated with him, but just I did this chart because I did a chart way back, way before he died, and I said a king was going to die. And I really didn't do a whole bunch of charts on it to find out. And a couple of weeks later, they had a alert in the paper. And naturally, I was in the paper and the headlines also. I was teaching drama. And the Federation said that the King of Rock and Roll died, so I did his chart to bring out some information. So I'm going to put that chart up. And we're going to look at this necessary return. Because there's many ways to do astrology. One is, Mr. Plesis knows is his birthday, and each planet moves around in time. Saturn, particularly one, takes 29.5 years to go around the circuit. It's a very important planet because it's the planet of death or rebirth. And it's the initiator, or it's the man with the sickle of Father Time. And it moves us in time and space. And if I'm not mistaken, Saturn has come around twice for you. So you are very fortunate you had a second rebirth, which you're in school here. So you look for another mode, and you moved yourself into a school area, which is giving you a rebirth into time and space, which is excellent. A lot of people, the planet comes around again, and they go into the doldrums and the hibernation or wherever. Everybody's different. So what I'm basically trying to do is pass on to you, not preach or ask you to accept it, but pass on the information that I have that I'm willing to share. If this was another time and age, they'd probably put me on a cross and burn me. But we're not living in that age now, which is very fortunate for us all. The person was born January 1935, 12:22 p.m. Excuse my back sometimes. Memphis, Tennessee. He had the sun in Capricorn. He also had Mercury and Venus high in the sky. Here we have 17 degrees of Capricorn, 22 degrees of Capricorn, and 29 degrees of Capricorn. If you ask me if he was a singer, I'd say yes. Mercury, high in the sky, voice. Venus, planet of the art world, music, arts, high in the sky. Conjunct, it's one another. Profession, again, high in the sky. The first house is ourselves, second house is our money, the third house is brother, fourth house is our home, our parents, The 5th house is love and pleasures from children, gambling. The 6th house is health and sickness, confinement, service. The 7th house rules partnerships, legal, law. You see the scales. It's not here, but in the archetype chart it is, which is the opposite of ourselves. The 8th house rules the house of death or rebirth or money inherited, the opposite of money. The 9th house is the house of God, higher learnings, long journeys. With this 3rd house is short journeys and brethren. The 10th house is the profession, opposite of the home. The 11th house rules friends, the opposite of love and pleasures. And the 12th house is hospitals, confinements, hidden secrets, enemies, the cult world, and everything else that deals with hospital drugs, anesthesia. Excuse me. So here, this person, the planet that rules this person, here is Taurus, and the chart that I gave you shows that Venus has its home in Taurus. So if I was going to analyze the chart, I'd say the ruling planet is not so much the sun that is important for ourselves. The sun only represents when we came to the planet. It represents our consciousness, the sun, where the moon represents our subconscious. They're all important. Each planet is important, not just one. But the most important thing in the chart is the ascendant, because that's our personality. So our love nature Venus and our martial, our sexual energies through Mars, our intelligence through Jupiter, our mind through Mercury, all play an important role in ourselves. But they all manifest through the ascendant, or our personality. So I look to the ascendant to see what is ruling the person. The planet Venus, because it has its home here, is not here anymore. It's in the 10th house professional world, high in the sky. So the person went to the profession using Mercury, speech, Venus, the art world, communication, and singing. So this is how we interpret the chart. We have to go through the whole process of analyzing, which I'm just going to go show you. I'm going to put up a solar return, which means that on January 7th, he was born at 12:22 Eastern Central Standard Time, p.m., but when the sun returned again to 17 degrees, 33 minutes of Capricorn, it was actually on January the 7th at 5:12 p.m. Central Standard Time. So now what I did a chart, which is called the solar return of a birth. We all have another birth. The ancients celebrated a birthday, and they gave gifts, because the birthday is probably the most significant time for all of us, because the sun returns, just as our sun goes through the sky and goes down to the dead of winter, and then increases again to be reborn and give us light again internally in our bodies. When the sun returns to the place it was when we entered the earth, is our birthday. So then the ancients gave gifts and everything to help the person and that energy move and keep them happy as the planet transited past that part of their body, or past their own birth, so they have another birth. And that's called, so I do a solar return. So what I want to find out here is that year, when he died, where the planets were, because that's going to show me what his year is going to be like. If I want to know what my year is going to be like, or anybody, I would take their birthday and I would do a chart for their birthday for the coming year. And in that chart, I'd look at that chart and I'd say, you're going to have a good year, or you're going to have a bad year, because the planets are going to tell me. And I superimpose that upon the original chart, and if you're going to be a king or a queen, the original chart, the natal chart will show it. If you're not, it's not going to show it. So we interpret the natal chart first. If it says you're going to be a king or a queen, I say, okay, when? So then I do a solar return for the most appropriate time. Then you can also do a lunar return, which is once a month when the moon returns to that point in the sky. So we break it down to a year. We find out the year. So now here, for the year, I want to see what was going on. I find Saturn, the planet of restriction, conjunct the moon, 15 degrees, 16 degrees. Stoppage of money, second house. Stoppage of the subconscious world. Here I find the sun, and Mercury, and Mars, all in the 6th house, sickness. Planet of love, I find it in the 8th house, the house of death. This year may not be a good year for the person. Lunar return. Now, I want to go back to the original chart for a second. And I think I'm going to come to an end after this. Here we find the moon at 6 degrees of Pisces, 46 minutes. So naturally, for that year, I have to bring the moon back to the same place. And I brought the moon back to the same place, 6 degrees of Pisces, 46 minutes, and that took place August the 1st, 1977, at 7 o'clock a.m. I find the sun and Saturn, again, the planet, to me, the planet of restrictions, not necessarily death, but the planet of restrictions, in the 12th house. So for that month, there was something going to happen. And if I have the other chart, where am I? I'm sure I had. I don't have. Anyway, I did the chart when he died. And when you go through all the pieces in the puzzle and superimpose each particular moment in time, you can come to a diagnosis and a synthesis of energy that manifests. So I'm not saying that we are predestined or destined to a particular thing. We have free will, and our free will gives us the opportunity to move with the energies that we are given. But we also make our energies. So I'm going to put up a chart here of a woman that I did. She was 17 when she came to me. I had a plant store on 8 George Street, and she wanted to know, thanks. She wanted to know what to do. And I'll put the chart up, maybe somebody knows it. It's Julie Boswell. Does anybody know Julie Boswell? Okay. I started to interpret the chart, and here I find Taurus again, representing the personality. Here I find Venus in the sign of Taurus, in its own sign, in the first house. Love. Awkward. She was thinking about going to Toronto, but she was afraid of her mother. She wanted to learn ballet, and I said, go. I said, you've got the potential, you've got the energy, and it's all going to help yourself, because the planets are working for yourself. Mercury here, in the sign of Gemini, excellent. Excellent Mercury. Here the sun, the conscience, also in Gemini, motion. So she went to Toronto, she learned dance, she came back and she started teaching dance in the Federation Center about 3 or 4 years later. So what I'm trying to bring out here is we can look to see what energies we have when we come to the planet, how to use those energies so they benefit us and they don't destroy us. And it's a tremendous science. And I would like to put up one more chart and I'll put up this one. It's a brief one. This is a chart that's on the screen of a person who had the sun in Aquarius when he was born. The planet that rules Aquarius is Saturn. Saturn is, as I said, restrictions. Uranus is an unconventional sign. Here, Saturn is in the first house for the personality. If you ever saw this person, he had a tattoo on his head of Saturn. He had a tattoo there. Saturn falls on the head of the person. The sun is in Aquarius, unconventional. Mercury is in Aquarius, unconventional thinking, unconventional consciousness. And the pressure of Saturn, he went and put this on his head. So I looked at the person and actually I wanted to do his chart. So I asked him his birthday, I went and did the chart, and this is what I found. So things correlate between each other. I'll leave that there, and there's just one more chart I'm going to put up, and that'll be it. What's that? No. Anyway, I'll bring this to an end. We read the Bible quite heavily, astrological works. There's a center in Virginia Beach that I've been to for a week. All his books and his writing. He healed with herbs, he healed with unconventional types of things. I was talking to Dan earlier. We were talking about herbs. There's also a man called Paracelsus, also versed in herbs. If anybody wants, they're welcome to look at a bunch of books here. Here, for the person, the moon was high in the sky, in the sign of Taurus. It's exalted in Taurus, subconscious, high, his profession. He used the subconscious world for his profession. He helped many, many people who were diagnosed with their diseases. So bringing this to an end, I'd like to say that astrology is a science. It takes many, many years to understand it. The symbols are vast. We can apply it to music, color, sound, the human body, anything we want to. It's a magical world for me. I've been doing it a long time. And I'll bring that to you and I'll ask if anybody has any questions. I don't know how much time we all have left, but I'll answer any questions anybody has. That's it. So, light.
I guess I get a question. It just seems to me like a lot of this astrological stuff, that they seem to be, it's so vague, the predictions, that at any one time you could pertain so many things to it. Here you had the, what did you say earlier, that you predicted the earthquake?
I don't like
you
the
just
term
did the chart afterwards?
No. If you ask Kathy, I talked about it long before the earthquake came, and I said there was a configuration that was coming. We can see it on the screen, how it was before, and how all of a sudden it comes together. The other chart I have here was 2000, and May 5th, 2000. It's going to be another configuration. And I'll guarantee you that there'll be another earthquake, and it'll be a disaster in California.
In California.
The astrology charts predict a disastrous earthquake in California.
Yeah.
No, you see,
It's like
the problem is,
They have it every couple of years.
well, excuse me, the problem is I wasn't going to do this. The only reason I did this topic was because Kathy came in here with some beautiful lakes and all the symbols on it from ancient times and how they used to put on their houses to water people and everything else. To me, this is a science. Unless you study it, you don't know. It's like anything. Anything that has symbols represents things. We have to study it, observe it, and then find out whether it's true or false. I don't like the term predicting. I don't predict. But it's very possible to foresee the possibility of events to occur